So what I'd like to do is talk real briefly about some tax planning opportunities. And this is probably the saddest part that I have. Since 2001, 2002, 2003, when we've effectively shut down non-economic transaction tax shelters, me as a tax advisor have almost advised on how to structure things for taxes after there's a business transaction in the works. So we start with a business economic viable project, and then we structure it in the most tax advantage ways we can. Okay? And the Supreme Court judge's learned hand says that's what a patriotic American should do. Okay? What I'm of the opinion, what we've effectively done with these increased rates and regime of surtaxes on top of surtaxes, is we're shifting the debates. And we're starting is, I have to do something with taxes. What should I do? Now, I'm a pretty good tax guy. I'm not necessarily a very good business guy. When business guys are coming to me to ask for what type of transactions they do, we are not maximizing our economic resources and capital. You know, we're sacrificing and taking non-optimum economic decisions and letting tax decisions override them. I think that's totally inappropriate. So what are we doing on some of these? Well, one of the things we're doing, and we'll do it extremely more aggressively if they do lower the corporate tax rate from 35% to 24 or 25 or 28%, is you're going to see a mass conversion of LLCs and S corporations converting to be taxed as C corporations. I think that's an inefficient capital model. I think it will lead to less revenue and less economic activity. Right now, there's about 33.6 million business returns filed of some type, whether it's sole proprietors, partnerships, LLCs, or C corporations. All but about 3 million of those are pass-through entities. The vast majority of them are sole proprietorships, but LLCs represent over 1 million. S corps are about 4.7 million, I believe. It was filed in 2011, and partnerships are several million returns. We will probably see a lot of those converted, even though by putting them in C corps will require them to be in a double tax regime. A double tax regime of maybe 25% now, and another 20% on the 75% of earnings that would be taxed out, which would be another 15% rate, ends up being taxed at a 35% rate, versus if we leave them in LLCs, they may be taxed at this 44% rate or higher. Again, I think it's a misnomer for us to think that makes good tax policy. That's the direction we're headed. And to me, it's very, very, very frustrating. The second thing you're going to see is something that we've seen in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, and particularly the 80s. But we've also seen it significantly last year and other years. You're going to see a significant number of tax transactions that the mass plan of that tax transaction is to minimize ordinary income and create capital gains. Real estate's a great way to do that. Private equity transactions are a great way to do that. If you think about the basics of a private equity transaction, is you have a company that's flowing income. If the owner of that flow of income keeps that flow of income himself, he has ordinary rates on it. Okay? However, if he packages that future stream of income and sells it to a private equity firm today on a discounted basis, okay, he realizes a capital gain. The private equity firm gets a step up in basis. which then can be amortized to offset that future flow income. And so we've effectively taken a substantial amount of that, other than the return, the profit to the private equity firm. We have effectively converted this to capital gain. You're going to see a lot more transactions like that. You're probably going to see significant more transactions where even if they don't sell the upside to the private equity firm, they will sell strips of preferred equity and other equity type instruments in order to create capital gains. Again, we're going to employ a lot of attorneys and a lot of accountants to do tax transactions that have no economic impact at all. And worst case is distracting good businessmen from doing economic activity to huddle in and plan for taxes rather than doing additional deals. The final piece, and this is my saddest piece, I talked about significantly now how our existing international businesses who are making significant amount of monies overseas, all of our growth markets are in Asia and other parts of the world. That's where they're making their money. And because of our current tax regime of having the highest corporate tax rate in the world, and the belief that the United States government can tax income earned in another country just because it's invested in the United States later, we have literally trillions of dollars parked overseas that cannot invest in the United States. The other half of this coin is we have an unbelievable number of very profitable taxpayers. Ones that have significant income being earned already overseas, even though all their business activities are in the U.S., and other ones who have no international revenue that are actively planning to move people from the United States to other sources. So one of my current clients now is a client of mine that makes about $30 million of revenue. 15 million of it comes from overseas, predominantly in Asia with a little bit of it in Europe. He currently, as a business strategy and as a competitive advancement, has 100% U.S. sales force. He has 100% U.S. Customer service and support and call centers. And he has 100% of his software development in the United States. He believes that having all those three teams together, interactive and working together, creates a significant better business solution and a competitive advantage for him than maybe saving some costs by outsourcing it. However, he's just now factoring on the fact that 100% of his income is being taxed at a 35% rate in 2012 and will be taxed at a 44% rate in 2013. His competitors, who are U.S. corporations, who have made the decision to move their sales force, to move their customer service and support operations, and their development activities outside the United States to any other country in the world, it doesn't have to be the particular country, are paying effective tax rates of 15%. So whether he thinks he has a better business solution and will make more money than that, the drastically higher tax cost to him is going to tilt that equation where we are going to hire half his sales force and base them internationally. We are going to move 100% of his customer service overseas, and we're not move all of his future development, with the exception of his director of development, to India. He estimates that net of some savings on the cost of it, it will cost him about $1 million more. We think that it will save him about $1.4 million of taxes per year. I don't understand the policy. I don't understand what we want to do. but these are competitive businesses. Obama's solution, instead of fixing the reason why we're not competitive, wants to penalize the U.S. company more. Okay? We have to compete against worldwide things. We're not competitive with them anymore. So what will happen is he will lose his international business if we don't allow him to reduce his tax rate by moving overseas, or try to penalize him for doing that. Those are significant planning opportunities. All three that I've just mentioned. Partners in our firm are dealing with clients on all of these every day. None of them make good policy sense, and it's very unfortunate, and we need to try to do something.